Okay, where are we? Who shot John? Who's on first?
So we got two deals left to present. Ed and Joe.
Okay.
And then we wanted to start with the Harvard University.
Okay, and which Harvard case did I give you?
Walt Disney Pixar.
Okay. Well, now that's an infamous case because you know what the results were. I mean, was that 10 years ago? Something like that?
2006.
Yeah, 10 years ago. And I still remember reading all the pundits, all the prognostications from all the business schools, etc. And it didn't turn out to be anywhere near accurate. But one of the benefits of having the dream team is that, like with myself, I've seen things happen that say they can never happen, and then I see them happen, and then I see them happen again. And so, I mean, you can never underestimate how wrong you can be. I mean, it's been proven to me, a million times is an exaggeration, but many, many, many times. And so, and what you have to do is you have to be mentally prepared to make some agile pivots, sometimes on the spot. And right now, most of the kids that come to the seminar, including the hardcore, aren't agile enough because of lack of experience to think on their feet and pivot. Because sometimes you can make a change based on something that the other side said that you can change immediately and get them to agree to, and then move on to the next point, as opposed to, oh, I'll get back to you on that. Because when you get back to them on that, they had more time to think about it, right. And they maybe even be sorry they opened their mouth to begin with, and so then the deal changes again and again. And that's why many of the kids that, not just kids that came to the seminar, that have used the QLA out in the real world for the last 20 plus years. Some have had success with it, many have, but many have not had success because they don't know enough. In other words, they got to go back and listen to that podcast, or they got to go back and read that newsletter, and by that time the deal's changed, pivoted, they changed their mind, and they say, tell you to fuck off. So, in fact, one of the deals that Weedman was working on sold to somebody else last night. And one of the deals that Greg mentioned last night sold to somebody else that morning.
They're moving fast.
Yeah, and both of the deals were hot. And but contrary to what the sellers always say, well, we've got 3 offers on the table. My experience is normally when they say they got no offers on the table. But 1 in 10 times, they actually do have other offers on the table, and the deals get sold to somebody else. But that's just part of the numbers game. I mean, you can't really focus on that. You've got to focus on that doing the right deal. And as I've said many times, Boone Pickens said 30 years ago, if you want to make a deal bad enough, you'll make a bad deal.
True. When you say that they sold to someone else, that means that they just entered into the contract.
Well, yeah, no, yeah. Well, in both cases, one entered the contract for $4 million, one entered the contract for £6 million.
So it doesn't mean it's a done deal. It just means they're in contract, and for whatever reason, they might fall out.
Well, I mean, no, that's correct. But in one of the cases, it's not subject to anything. They just pay for it. In the other case, it's subject to due diligence.
Okay.
And so it could fall out. It could, but as I told in both cases, you can't wait around, basing your life on something that may fall out. I told them to move on. If it does fall out of bed, they will be the first to call you. That's one thing you can be assured of. They'll call you then if it fell out, and they'll be looking to you to hopefully. And when they do come back to you, it's always your offer has dropped. It is reduced. Always. It's like due diligence. Always drives prices down. When their deal drops out of bed, your offer goes down.
Right.
And they'll say, but Ed, you said such and such. Yeah, I said such and such on October the 8th. The world's moved on, you know. Hillary Clinton's gonna be president and the world's gonna be fucked, so I'm willing to pay less money now. Or whatever the reason.
And yeah, when you go to such negotiations, for sure you prepare yourself like crazy, and you know what's the maximum you're gonna pay.
Correct.
What is the conditions you?
Yeah. Now, there's an old saying in negotiating, and it's 99% accurate, but it's not 100% accurate. I'll let Joe pick the price. I'll pick the terms. Okay? I'll let Ed pick the price. How much you want?
5 million.
5 million? Okay, I'll give you 5 million over 5 years, or I'll give you 10 million over 20 years. You pick your own poison. You pick the price, and I'll pick the terms. And I learned that not the hard way, but with the Onassis people. They never argued about price very much. They also didn't argue about fees very much. What they did argue about is their own personal cash management. In other words, them taking maximum use of their cash and cash flow. So that means that they didn't mind paying you more money, Ed, if it was over 3 years or 5 years, and that's one of the pillars of the QLA model, is that you want commercial finance, if at all possible. You want the seller to take back paper, okay, be at risk with you, with skin in the game. You want it to be 3 to 6, 7 times EBITDA, and if you can't make that spread, then you go to mezzanine or bridge financing, and then the last resort is private equity. But if a seller, like a couple of examples that you had in there since yesterday, the guy says, I'll take the money over 10 years. I mean, I almost fucking fainted. Because normally that's what I'm saying, and then he says 3 years, I say 10, and then I say 8, and he says, but when the guy opens up, he says, and I had him clarify it with Greg, he says, over 8 to 10 years. And then I said, have you figured out the difference in calculation between 8 and 10 years? And he hadn't. So then we penciled it out, and it was 180,000 pounds a year. But I said, over 10 years, that's $1.8 million. Over 8 years, that's 360, that's $1.5 million or 4 or something like that. But the magic is, if they say over 8 to 10 years with no interest, then I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, fine. I mean, you write it out. And one of the things that Rocks has really done intelligently, either by accident or design, is that the old man is writing this shit on a legal pad. So he's, and it's not 100%, but they feel more committed if they write it down. And, yeah, you pick the price and I'll pick the terms. When I bought my estate in Rolling Hills, it had been on the market 5, 6, 7 years. There were 22 real estate brokers involved, 22 fighting over fees. So I went to the bank that had it in reorganization, and I said, what does it take? What is the purchase price for all the brokers to get their fees? 100%, no haircuts. Because I knew that when I went back to the 22 brokers, if nobody was getting a haircut and they were getting their full commission, they got no reason to fight. And he came back and told me the purchase price, and I thought it was high, but how long? And then I said, well, who's the first broker? And, Remax or whoever. Okay, so they've had the skin in the game the longest. Who's the last broker? Whoever, Prudential. And so then I came up with this, thumbnail formula. So basically, all the brokers got, roughly speaking, 75% of the fees that they were due. The oldest broker got almost 100% of the fees. The newest broker, who just fucking came in the door, got much lesser. And they all agreed, all 22 brokers. And they thought that, I mean, because the brokers at the end of the day wanted their fee, but the guy that just signed a listing, even though I believe it was a fraudulent listing, he's been there a week, when the other guy had been there 7 years trying to sell it. So I was able to convince easily the guy that was there a week, I'll give you 20% of your brokerage fee today, today, right now. Give it to me, I'm gone. You'll never see me again. And so then I bought the house, but it had been on the market for a long time. But and then so remember that they can ask the price, and then as long as you more or less can control the terms, you're going to be much better off. Much better off. And okay, you got the Pixar, Harvard. 3 o'clock, we got you.
I have a question about that.
Yes, sir.
So just structure of a, because I've never been to one of these board meetings. Structure of what to expect.
Okay, I'm gonna say, welcome, bullshit. You introduce everybody, Rox, and then you say, I'm asking our chairman to be chair of the meeting. And then I'll say thank you very much. First thing I want to announce is that we will not be following Robert's rules. Robert's rules is the definitive Bible on how you run a board meeting. And there's a lot of nuances, and I will say we will not be following Robert's rules. Okay? And then we have a simple agenda. We've got, in my judgment, some simple points to cover and agree. And then we'll follow, the agenda. And then at the end, I'll say there should be something on the agenda that says that we want to give Rox the ability to get this deal closed. So we're going to give him the authority for the next board meeting to act as the chief executive of our deal. And that we agree on all the points, and I'd like assigned a voice for all those who are in favor, and they'll say yeah, and then I'll say all those opposed, and they'll say nobody will say opposed, and then we'll move on, and then I'll say are there any other questions, and there may be, and then we answer the questions if not yet vote. Right there. And if there is a question that we can't answer, see, we've already voted on everything. If there is a question that we can't answer, and I can almost answer 100% of questions, no matter what the fuck they are, because I've been through this so many times. And then I'll say that Rox will get back with you if somebody asks some really detailed question I can't answer. But for the most part, these guys aren't trying to make a step on our dick. For the most part, they want the deal to go through. And so I'm not saying that we're taking advantage of that in a bad way, but we're going to push it through. And so then we agree. Thank you very much for your time. Rox will be back to you in due course. In Britain, due course means sometime between now and never. But the Brits always say, "Well, I'll be back to you in due course." And that means their intention is to get back to you. That doesn't mean they will get back to you. In due course. There's no specific time frame. And that should go fairly smoothly.
Do you have so Stan Bailey, Barnhart, he's the actual, he's that guy on there who's actually helping us raise money. And he's putting together a plan for raising money. Do you want to talk anything with him about what he's doing or anything like that?
No, I don't want, I want the least amount of definitive information in the public domain meaning on the board, for everybody. Because the more information that they have, the more likely they may question something. And they're not going to question it to fuck everything up. They just might ask a question. But if they, if finance comes up, I will say that this meeting was to generally approve us moving forward. Rox can get back to you on some of the definitive points. But you'll hear how I answer.
Okay.